Finally, it's game week, and Brian Kelly previews South Carolina. We've got what you need to know. Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked On LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get great podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So we had a week to commiserate. We had a week to nitpick everything wrong with LSU after the loss to Ole Miss, and they come through their open date, moving up 2 spots in the rankings. LSU now 11th in the country after a series of upsets, and they're still sitting there at 1 loss. So the hope is LSU use the open date to get healthy and to try to get the offense right, to go out and beat South Carolina this weekend in Tiger Stadium. As I've mentioned on a lot of different platforms, you can roll your eyes. You could point out everything that's wrong with LSU. The reality is we could point out a lot wrong with every team in the country. And right now, you're a home favorite over South Carolina. You're going to be a road favorite at Vanderbilt. You'll be a home favorite against Texas A&M. You win these 3 games here in October. You go into your second open date, and then you'll have home games against Arkansas and Western Kentucky where you'll be a big favorite. You'll have road games against Bama and Oklahoma where you'll probably be an underdog. If you hold serve at home, you split those 2 road games against Oklahoma and Alabama, you're 10-2 and you're in the playoff. So there's a path, but it starts with holding serve at home, and that's this week against South Carolina. And the most important question as we push off from the dock here this week is the injuries. They went into the open date with a handful of key players, starters that were banged up, that were potentially missing time, and Brian Kelly gave an update on all of them.
I think we'll list Weston is a go, Caden is a go, Nuss is a go, Paul is questionable, and Anderson is a probable.
Okay, so let's go through each of those quickly. Weston Davis, of course, right tackle, concussed in pregame. He's a go. That's great. In line with what we had heard last week, he was expected to clear concussion protocol. Caden Durham, also a go. Listen, I understand LSU's running game has not been good this year, but you are objectively better when your starting running back is available. And Caden Durham is your best running back. So declaring him a go already on Monday of game week is a good sign that he took that open date, didn't play against Ole Miss, had last week with the open date off, so a couple of weeks to heal, and now this week as well to keep getting healthier. So you're better. You're better with Caden Durham. I don't know how much it would have changed things against Ole Miss, maybe more of a commitment to running the football if you had Caden Durham, maybe not. But having Caden Durham makes you better. Garrett Nussmeier's a go. No surprise. He's been playing all year. I know nothing anybody says about Nuss is going to change anybody's mind at this point. It's all going to be what we see with how he plays this week and moving forward. But we'll delve in a little deeper in a second. The Aaron Anderson, probable. And Paul Mubenga, questionable. Now, that's going to raise a very serious question about what you do at left guard, keeping in mind that has been Cohen Eccles primarily at left guard. But Brian Kelly did also hint that there could be another option at left guard, which we'll get to in just a second. But let's stick with Nuss because that's clearly what everybody is going to want to know. And Brian Kelly was asked, what effectively the update is on Garrett Nussmeier. Remember, after the Monday after the Florida game is when Kelly disclosed the torso and said, really, they'll shut him down during the bye week, and that's when he'll be closer to 100%. He's consistently said, Kelly has, that Nuss is through the worst of it. He's on the other side of the injury, as he said. I know there's a lot of people that don't believe that. I, for one, do. I think the limitations in this passing game haven't been Nussmeier's torso or anything of the sort. I think it's more been the fact that you've had no balance. He's tried to force balls into 8-man drop coverage, and you've had a leaky offensive line that's given up a lot of pressures. But In any event, here was Brian Kelly with the update on Nussmeier.
He's feeling better and better. We didn't do a lot with him last week. We wanted to use that as a recovery week for him. Obviously he did a lot with VR. He stayed involved in everything that we're doing, run game checks, blitz checks, things of that nature. But we just cut him down from, the throwing. Obviously we're going to go out today. We'll get a bonus day in terms of being able to practice today. So our expectations after talking to him is he feels good and he's ready to go.
Feels good, ready to go. I know Brian Kelly has said that, and a lot of people don't believe it. My contention remains that for everyone who questioned Nuss's injury after Florida, we went and saw them play against Southeastern Louisiana. Again, I'm not concerned with the opponent. I'm more concerned with what Nuss physically did, which was stretch the field, throw the ball down the field, zip on the ball, accuracy. All that stuff was there against Southeastern. I don't think that it was absent against Ole Miss. I think he was throwing against, as Brian Kelly said it, 86% drop 8 coverage. And when they're dropping 8 in coverage, 86% of your offensive snaps, really hard to find open guys. And I think Nuss forced the issue, and I think that was a big problem, and their inability to run the ball compounded all of it. But Brian Kelly did elaborate further on what they had Nuss doing during the bye.
And Nuss was involved in the entire practice. We just didn't have him throw. He threw with a towel, which is just getting the motions and keeping the arm ready. But he did essentially all of the mental work for what we had for the days on the field.
So, listen, I know we looked at the Ole Miss defense, which is one of the worst defenses in the SEC. And LSU should have been able to have more success in that game. They didn't. South Carolina is a different type of challenge altogether. They have one excellent defensive end in Dylan Stewart. But remember, a year ago, this was a South Carolina defense that really paced that team. For all the conversation about Lenora Sellers, it was Stewart and Kennard, who was the SEC Defensive Player of the Year, and Tonka Hemingway and Nickem and Worry. Like, that was they had pros on that South Carolina defense a year ago. They don't right now. What I will say for Carolina is they're 33rd in the country in scoring defense at 18.8 points per game, but that's a little skewed. They gave up 10 to South Carolina State, which is a MEAC school. Then they gave up 13 to Kentucky. They gave up 11 to Virginia Tech. However, they gave up 31 to Vanderbilt. They gave up 29 to Missouri. And I'm thinking that this is going to be a better LSU team than the offenses they faced. So if Nuss is healthy, LSU's back at home, Caden Durham's healthy, this team should be able to get going. Now, what else has ailed the offense? Because there was two things that we talked about that they wanted to have happen during this open day. One was get healthy. Two was self-scout and figure out how to get the offense going, in particular, the running game. Well, Brian Kelly addressed that, and we'll get to it next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Love telling you about PrizePicks. Great partners here on Locked on LSU. Every day we make decisions, but on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Playing PrizePicks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections, like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown, and you're in the game. And I love how quick it is. You can make your lineup literally in under a minute. My favorite part is PrizePicks just added stacks. So if I want to ride with a player, I can select their pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns all in one lineup. And the new injury reboot feature, if your player leaves early and doesn't return, it won't count against you. So download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineups. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So LSU had the open date, and a lot of times you'll hear the word or the phrase self-scout when you go into the open date, because you're not necessarily preparing for an opponent. It's an opportunity to look at yourself. What are you doing well? What are you not doing well? When you get into the cadence of a game week, it makes a lot of sense. You play a game on Saturday. On Sunday, the staff comes in, they break down the film, and you start getting the game plan ready for the opponent. So when the team comes in on Monday, you're going through a walkthrough and you're beginning your preparation full speed on Tuesday for your next opponent. Well, when you have an open date, you're not going through that work of getting ready for your next opponent. So it affords you the opportunity to self-scout. So Brian Kelly was asked over the week of self-scout, what did they notice?
We've been so much better in the second half than the first half. From an offensive perspective, play a little bit more to our strengths. And really, like I mentioned, much more of an efficient 4 quarters of offense is what's needed. There's no major changes. There's no, hey, we're going to go to a split back veer or do something crazy here. We have to be more efficient in our passing game. We've got to hit shots down the field. And then we have to be much more efficient with the run game. So we've been working hard on it. Our guys have. I'm proud of the way they really locked in last week in a bye week. And my expectations is this offense is going to continue to get better week after week.
Now, I do believe if you're an everydayer, shout out, this is one of my mantras, teams are allowed to improve. And you should get better. And I think the key to LSU getting better offensively is that offensive line improving, which we're going to talk about in a bit. But I think it all ties together where if the line improves, they were able to run better. They're able to keep Nussmeier upright. Remember, a year ago, you had one of the best pass blocking offensive lines ever. And keeping Garrett upright is how they were able to function so well in that passing game. Whereas you think about the Ole Miss game, Garrett Nussmeier, even facing a 3-man rush, was under duress, very hard to function therein. It's interesting to hear Brian Kelly say there that they've been much better offensively in the second half, which kind of makes you think, roll your eyes a bit, but it actually does hold water. If you think about Clemson, remember, that was a 10-3 ball game in the first half. LSU just had the 3 points on the board, and they ended up scoring a touchdown in the third, a touchdown in the fourth. And actually, you would have had another touchdown on the Barian Brown play, which I think we all think was a catch. But anyway, the point being, it was a situation where you did actually play better offensively after halftime. It may not feel like it, but the same is actually true against Ole Miss. You scored first, but then you got shut out in the second quarter. And then, you scored a touchdown in the fourth and 2 field goals in the third. And it's unfortunate that those drives in the third quarter netted field goals instead of touchdowns, but you did actually put points on the board more in the second half than you did in the first half. So he's not wrong. You have been better offensively in the second half than the first half. So how can you start faster and maybe give yourself a little bit of a better edge? Now, Brian Kelly, you heard him say that they want to be more efficient in the passing game and they've got to get the run game going. There's no question this team, the strength should be the passing offense. You got a 5th-year senior quarterback that threw for 4,000 yards a year ago. And not only did you return Aaron Anderson and Xavier Thomas and Chris Hilton and Trey Green, but you added Barian Brown and Nick Anderson and Bauer Sharp. And yes, that should be the strength of this team as your passing offense. And it just hasn't been. Garrett Nussmeier right now through 5 games is averaging just over 230 pass yards a game. A year ago through 5 games, he was averaging 330 pass yards per game. So he's averaging through 5 games 100 yards less than he was through 5 games a year ago. And all of this, I think, dovetails together. I know the explanation many want to believe is Nuss is injured. I'm telling you, I believe the explanation is you can't run the ball, you can't protect, you're facing 8-man coverages, and it's darn near impossible to throw against that. So I believe that means you've got to be able to run the ball. You've got to get the run game going. And Brian Kelly seems to acknowledge that.
Getting the running game going is a relative term to, for me, in terms of efficiency. You don't want to be one-dimensional, but you want to be able, when you run the football, you can have some success like we did against Ole Miss late in the game, right? How do you carry that to, where we're going to bludgeon people up front? That's not who we are right now. But we need to have a running game that keeps you honest, that you can't, put 5 guys in the box and cover down with 7 others. So fair box runs, we've got to be better at, and we've got to be able to run the ball efficiently when you give us that look. If you want to play too high safety and give us fair numbers, we've got to be efficient at running the football, and we will be eventually.
Eventually. So how long will that take? And he's right. That is, again, my opinion, the key to getting this offense going. which is teams are showing you right now. Oh, listen, Louisiana Tech did it. Ole Miss did it. Florida did it. This is what everybody's going to do. They're going to rush 3 or 4, and they're going to drop into coverage until LSU proves it can run the ball. Now, the other question is it that they can't run the ball or they're not attempting to run the ball? Hear me out. We've gone through these, percentages before, where a year ago, LSU threw the ball on 60% of its passes, and they ran it 40. They were 60-40 pass run. I had Cole Kubelik from the SEC Network, former Auburn offensive lineman, on my radio show over the summer, and I asked Cole point blank why LSU's offensive line a year ago couldn't run block. This is what he said.
I don't think that offensive line could not run block last year. I don't think that offensive line was given a fair chance to be good run blockers last year, because selectively doing it once a quarter, once a half, once every 3 games is not giving me the opportunity to prove to you what I'm about and what I can do.
The point is, you've got to commit to running the football. And I don't believe that's been the case. Earlier in the season, they were skewing more 55-45 pass run. So there was a little bit more of an emphasis on trying. Against Ole Miss, that all went out the window. And it's fair to mention you were without Caden Durham, your best running back. And you ended up down 2 offensive linemen. Weston Davis ends up getting hurt in pregame. Paul Mubenga goes out early in the 3rd quarter. So then you have a true freshman, Carius Curne, at right tackle, and a redshirt freshman, Cohen Eccles, at left guard. So you're down your best running back, 2 offensive linemen on a team that was already struggling to run block, and I think that's where they threw it out the window. Against Ole Miss, LSU threw the ball 34 times. They ran it 22. You cannot have that much of an imbalance and tell me that you're trying to be balanced. You're trying to get the run game going. And so the other part of that was asked of Brian Kelly about play calling. Is it less your ability to run and more making the commitment to run?
You want to be able to set up what you're doing as a play caller. And look, I think Joe does a really good job. He obviously is under the microscope. I get it. He gets it. We're looking for balance in our offense. And sometimes the circumstances are such that, a run call doesn't make sense here. But we clearly understand the need for balance. We clearly understand the need to complement our defense. And you can't do it just by throwing it.
Actions speak louder than words. And I understand saying Joe Sloan does a good job. Sometimes run calls, pass calls are circumstantial. That's true. If it's 3rd and 8, then you're probably not running the football. I get it. But you also had a situation where in a 4-quarter game, there were only 2 instances where you ran the ball in consecutive plays. Say that again slowly. Against Ole Miss, only twice in the entire game did you run the ball on consecutive plays. Think back to what Cole said. The offensive line a year ago wasn't given a chance to prove they could be a good run-blocking offensive line because you didn't do it enough. And I think the same was true against Ole Miss, regardless of who's in there at running back. So will they make that commitment against South Carolina and moving forward? There's another interesting caveat because, as you noticed, Joe Sloan is in the booth, and sitting next to him is Alex Atkins. Alex Atkins was the offensive coordinator at Florida State and also the offensive line coach there who manages LSU's run game. And I asked Brian Kelly what Alex Atkins' role on game day sitting next to Joe Sloan is, and you'll hear what Brian Kelly said when we come back. And could we see some shuffling on that offensive line? Brian Kelly addressed that as well. You'll hear it as we continue Locked on LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Love telling you about Game Time. Great partner here on Locked on LSU. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands. There's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Pulled up Game Time, just a couple of taps. Saw amazing deals talking about your favorite college football games for as low as $25. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, Use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. And today's show is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that make the neighborhood, well, the neighborhood. These are the places that become an extension of home. Whether it's the sports bar dedicated to your team's fan base, the spot with the best wings in town for game day, or the beloved local chain that's been in your community rooted for years. These are the businesses that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the entire neighborhood thrives with it. So you want to check out Square. And right now, Square, proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. That's square.com/go/lockedoncollege. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. We'll see you in the neighborhood. So Joe Sloan, of course, is LSU's offensive coordinator. And he sits in the press box and he calls all the plays. Well, when they show that shot, the camera shot in the press box, sitting next to Joe Sloan is Alex Atkins. Remember, Alex Atkins was the offensive line coach at Florida State that LSU tried to hire years ago. He ended up staying at Florida State, and LSU hired Brad Davis. Well, when Florida State had their 2-10 season, they needed a scapegoat, and they fired Alex Atkins after their 2-10 season. He was the offensive coordinator. Well, Atkins was hired by LSU as the tight ends coach. So you have an exceptional offensive line coach coaching tight ends, and also a guy who has been a major power four offensive coordinator. So I asked Brian Kelly, what's Alex Atkins' role on game day, and is he collaborating there with Joe Sloan?
Yeah, they're collaborating. In particular, Alex has been assigned the run game, and I think that collaboration occurs. I can hear it on the headsets. They work well together, and that's why, I've said this before. We want to run the ball more efficiently, but I see the signs of that coming together. So we expect that to get better and better as the season goes on. But yeah, those two are collaborating on game day.
If I had a follow-up, I would have loved to ask Brian Kelly, what are the signs that he sees that it's getting better? Because it sure didn't look good against Ole Miss. So what is he seeing? Maybe something we'll be able to ask after LSU plays South Carolina, in hopes that the offensive line does perform better and LSU's running game is better. Speaking of that offensive line, it's worth noting that because of injury, there was a shuffle on the offensive line, injury and a targeting call. So I'll take you back. Remember, in the second half of the Southeastern Louisiana game, DJ Chester was in on the field goal team when LSU tried the long field goal. Southeastern was returning it. DJ Chester was flagged for targeting, so he had to miss the first half of the Ole Miss game. Well, Weston Davis, your starting right tackle, gets concussed in pregame. Chester would have been your right tackle. I mean, he was sort of the next man up. Brian Kelly disclosed he was basically the sixth man anywhere on the line. Anybody goes out, Chester goes in. Well, Chester wasn't available for the first half, so they ended up playing Carius Curne at right tackle. And with Weston Davis now coming back and Curne having started and played the entire game against Ole Miss at right tackle, Brian Kelly was asked if there's an open competition over there at right tackle or if it's Weston Davis's job.
Weston Davis obviously couldn't play in the Ole Miss game, but look, he's got some snaps underneath him. Carius is there. If Weston needs a blow, we can also look at Carius inside at the guard position now that, Paul is banged up. So we've got some flexibility with Carius to move him into the guard position or the tackle position.
And that is the most interesting part of this conversation. Because I want to remind you, when Carius Curne showed up in spring ball, he was exclusively working at left tackle. Throughout fall camp, Carius Curne worked exclusively as the second-team left tackle behind Tyree Adams until 12 days before the season opener against Clemson, when he was taking first-team reps at right tackle when they were trying to push Weston Davis. We have only exclusively seen Carius Curne play tackle. Paul Mubenga this week is questionable with the ankle injury. Cohen Eccles had been the guy who's replaced Paul Mubenga at left guard. That's where the rotation has been. It might come to pass where they just feel like Carius Curne right now is one of their best five. As a matter of fact, I asked Brian Kelly, remember, against Ole Miss, when the second half started and DJ Chester was available, they didn't put DJ Chester in at right tackle. They stayed with Carius Curne. And I asked Brian Kelly why.
Because what we saw in the first half, essentially, I think if there were major issues, Matt, Brad and I would have probably made a decision there to make the change. But we felt like Carius was giving us good energy. He was protecting our edge really well in the passing game. There were a couple of mistakes inside out, which we expected that was going to happen. But by and large, we felt like let's let the young guy play. And that was kind of our sense.
When you look at snap counts right now, DJ Chester's played 104 snaps. Carius Curne's played 89. You are seeing Cohen Eccles is at 149. So you don't have a gigantic disparity there among those players and how it may go. And Brian Kelly last week made the comp with Carius Curne to Emory Jones in his freshman season. And remember, Emory didn't play the season opener against Florida State. And then he was in on a rotational basis week 2 against Southern. By week 3 against Mississippi State, he was starting at right tackle and never gave up the job. Eventually, they got to the point where they said, you're one of our best 5, we're playing you. And they might be close to that with Carius Curne. And this week against South Carolina could be our first opportunity to see it. We're counting down to the Tigers and the Gamecocks from Tiger Stadium on Saturday night. We'll be here with you all week long, getting you set for an SEC battle here on Locked On LSU. And remember, it's another big moment for Locked On. You've got Locked On and Fire TV presenting College Football Kickoff. It's a college football preview only Locked On can do. So catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Hey, if you're on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked On LSU. It's your team every day.